German journalist Julian Robke. He's talking about the modern Western artillery system turned out to be unsuitable for intensive use in artillery warfare. When you look at this war in Ukraine, how did you find the weaponry of NATO?
Well, I find them subpar. It doesn't mean that they are not dangerous, as any weapon it's dangerous, especially if it is in the crafty hands of people with the good skills. But yes, subpar extremely across the board, from air defense to artillery. There is evidently the issue there, for example, from what I know, and again, I'm not there, but from what I know from people there, they wear off their liners, basically, which is the barrel itself, really fast, which is surprising. You would expect, for example, from Germans, to be very good at their metallurgy, but after the failure of number of German weapon systems, not least through the Leopard 2 tanks being basically an easy target and an easy prey, you begin to doubt if they really got it right to start with. And all indicators are that they have the issue not just with the quality of the systems, they have the issue which is more profound and deep rooted, which is, of course, the view on the technological dimension of the warfare. And again, when you look at how they all basically build it around and what they build it around, it is this totem of the first Gulf War, Desert Storm operation, which they still worship, not understanding that actually it was the worst thing which could have happened to them. So, and as a result, we see what we see. I mean, their failure after failure after failure, especially enduring in the serious combat. And of course, this old, nauseatingly tiresome issue of how sophisticated, quote unquote, all weaponry, all modern weaponry is usually sophisticated. It's the quality of the weaponry and how you make it to endure in real combat. And basically NATO weaponry and procurement policy was an utter failure.
When it comes to production of these weapons, there are a lot of discussion how the United States is not capable of producing at the level that Russia does. What's the main problem? What's the core problem?
The main problem is, and it goes through all my writing for the last 10 years, those weapons are done for sale. They are not made for real war, and especially against the very serious enemy. And secondly, so many supply chains have been broken, and that for now, even to restore them, just to give you example, the black powder, which is still actively used in the, all kinds of munitions, I believe the United States has only one plant which produces it. I believe it's in Louisiana or somewhere there in the South. And just to give you example, the whole supply chain and the whole elements which go into the production of the black powder, they're so extensive, including the minerals and chemical elements which you need to produce that United States doesn't have some of those elements in the territory of the United States, in the United States proper. And guess what? From what I heard, some of those have been imported from Russia. I don't remember what type of the chemical. I'm not chemist, but this is just the example. And when you look across the whole thing, across the whole spectrum of the military production, yeah, it's pretty much broken supply chains over pretty much anywhere where you look in the production, especially such things which obviously the artillery shells and things of this nature. And then suddenly you begin to recognize that money, you know what, money are not worth much when you have nothing to buy with them. And that's the whole problem. And the whole sectors of American economy, which was connected to the military industrial complex, have been basically eliminated. And then suddenly you cannot just restore military industrial complex. You have to restore all those suppliers, all those industries which provide those elements. and they're not there anymore. And the worst part, of course, there are no cadres, there are no professionals who can do it.
Can we say that in the United States we have the monopoly of these factories, these enterprises? When it comes to Russia, is the monopoly of state?
It is the state control. It is the anathema for all those free enterprise fundamentalists in the United States, because they no Ivy League school, be that Georgetown, Harvard, or whatever, and especially when they teach this government, whatever that means, and international relations or whatever they study there, which is not good, they will not be able to wrap their brains around that when you have critical elements of the state control and management primarily, and state, the government, if you wish, monopolizes, which is supposed to be the right for the violence. That's what makes it very important. And violence, organized violence, is war. It monopolizes its views on the how the military industry operates. And then, of course, you add here the Russian general staff. Essentially, the organization which not only basically runs the combat control of Russian armed forces, it is also intellectual center for the development of the warfare. And they are the ones who formulate technical and tactical requirements for weapon systems. This is not how it exists in the United States. And because obviously, Russia also have obviously it's some sort of competition within the military industrial complex of Russia, but it is different type of competition. It's primarily about financing, but they are doing what is known in Russia as ГОЗ. ГОЗ literally means Государственный оборонный заказ, state defense order. And that is not just the matter of budget. It is the state defense order is where everything itemized and detailized in terms of what weapon systems, how many, what are deadlines, how many shells, how many cruise missiles, how many Kinzhals, how many S-500s, and all along. Finally, which is very interesting. Last year, Kremlin issued the order to finally close some of the articles which are presented in the ГОЗ, which is the state defense order, is basically to make them classified back again, because enemies are not supposed to know what is being developed. And of course, Russians approach the R&D, research and development of weapon systems, very differently from the United States. So, and that goes also in the testing programs, and that's the difference. And yeah, Russian state doesn't play jokes. Russian state knows what it means to defend itself, because Russia was fighting out of 1,200 years of the Slavic tribes of Russia. They fought nonstop for 850 years, defending the land from just all kinds of invaders. And the United States obviously doesn't have this history. They don't understand what it is. And sitting behind two basically oceans, what do you expect from them? It's cavalier attitude, so, well, there you go. I'm not sure they're going to learn this lesson, but, and I don't think so they will, because there is no cultural and mental, basically, factors which influence it in the proper direction. There you go. And again, nobody really wants to attack United States. It is United States which is an aggressor pretty much, mostly throughout its whole history, so there.
Much of the coverage of Russia and China is from mainstream media pushing their own narratives. It can be impossible to consult a single source to get the full picture. This is why I've been using Ground News. Their website and app combines news from across the world and political spectrum in one place. Let me show you how it works. Take a look at this story on Russia developing ties with North Korea. On the website, I can see this story has been covered by more than 20 sources, with coverage coming mainly from center-leaning sources and pretty evenly divided by the left and right. If I scroll down, I can see the articles about this topic and compare the headlines. And beside every headline, there is a tag showing me the political bias, credibility, and ownership of the source. This headline on the left says Russia, North Korea further beef up ties amid arms trade allegations, from focuses on the existing relationship between the two countries and the allegations. While this right-leaning headline, Moscow developing ties with North Korea in sensitive areas, Kremlin confirms focuses more on the Russian government's confirmation that it's developing ties, including militarily. Looking closer at the coverage, I notice even reporting coming from Russian government-owned sources. I appreciate that ground news include these kind of sources, as many platforms remove them, leaving us in the dark about their side. I particularly find ground news blind spot feed interesting, which features stories that are underreported by either the left or the right. It helps you escape your echo chamber and see stories normally you wouldn't see. I share ground news mission to create constructive dialogue, promote civil debate, look at all sides, which is why I'm excited to have them sponsor this video. Go to ground.news/dialogue works to check it out. You can subscribe through my link to get 30% off unlimited access through the Vantage subscription, which is what I use. When you subscribe, not only support me, you're also supporting an independent platform trying to make the news more transparent. European just recently said that in 3 years they're gonna produce weapons at the same level that Russia produces right now. Are they capable of doing this? How do you find this statement?
I find them ridiculous because obviously with the present situation with the energy, and yes, military production requires a lot of energy. It's all wet fantasies, and it's all, for the domestic consumption. It's knee-jerk reaction. They absolutely do not have capabilities to do that, and they don't have them from the energetic point of view. And then, of course, if you look at Anthony, at the main locomotive of the European economy, Germany, it has been the industrialized in unbelievable, stupefying rate. So yeah, they're closing their, chemical plants, which was always their strong part of German economy. They closed the metallurgical plants. And so, yeah, sure, good luck trying to do that. So.
The other dimension of this war in Ukraine would be the strategy on the part of NATO. The Telegraph just recently reported that Ukraine has begun copying Russia's defense system. What was the problem with the NATO's strategy that they're shifting right now to the Russia's strategy?
First, NATO doesn't do strategy. NATO does primarily political statements. The only strategy they have is the United States trying to remove the last vestiges of the competition from the military-industrial complex in Europe. And then, of course, turn NATO allies, so to speak, the only exclusively consumers of the American products, such as that is why they will not dare to put their Abrams tanks on the battlefield, because they already destroyed pretty much reputation of the Leopard tanks and the Challenger tanks. So they don't want to do that. But they have now political and ideological leverage to say to Germans, you see, your Leopards suck. Buy our, buy our Abrams tanks. And Germans say, hey, you know what? They haven't been in the real combat there. But the American side will say, yeah, that's the whole point. They haven't been defeated because of that. So there you go, buy it. And so F-35, it's a lame duck. It's really not good plane. Buy that, and they will be buying this, and they are already buying this. And so that's the whole thing. And there is no strategy per se. They invent those threats. I understand that some people there are competent. There are some competent officers who can calculate, who can count, and who can understand things. But United States, which is the big honcho in NATO, we're not talking about UK, Germany, France. Militarily, they are insignificant. But United States doesn't do strategy. They cannot do strategy. The only thing they do, quoting my friend, a very famous Russian journalist, Alexander Rogers, they do business plans. In order for you to develop strategy, you have to have a serious general staff. And you have to have a serious military science environment where you study the conflict. America doesn't have it. They write a lot about it, but they don't study real history, military history. They don't study real military science, and that is why there is no strategy. Look at Afghanistan. There was no strategy. They lied after Washington Post published pretty much, the whole epistolary genre, basically, between American generals and Afghanistan and political top. For years, they were lying. There was no real strategy. I remember discussing the surge. Oh my God, 40,000 people, additional. Okay, so it's not strategy. It's operational matter if you decided to do this. Strategy as the general plan on achieving on the military level, achieving of the political aims of war, and which is completely coordinated with the state strategy as the highest level strategy, in which the military strategy is one of the tools, and which is serving for the state aims, state strategy of achieving much larger political, geopolitical aims in its struggle to defend itself. United States doesn't do this. United States has elections every 4 years. It doesn't have people who really care about strategy. They don't know what to do with that. And I'm talking about high state strategy. They have those cliches. They have consensuses. They cannot do strategy because United States lives basically it lives in a non-stop election cycle. And the only thing any state person, including President of the United States, cares about is not some strategy. They don't have time to study it. Look at Joe Biden or W. The only thing they care is how to re-elect themselves. And as the result, they produce those talking points and programs. But United States is the last strategist who've been in the United States of any, how to say it, import and significance in terms of political top, it was, of course, Eisenhower. So that's pretty much the level. And after that, primarily self-serving, self-promoting bureaucrats such as late Henry Kissinger, who I don't know why he is worshipped by these people in Washington. The guy was actually, apart from having his hands bloody, he was not a good strategist. Read the whole geopolitical publications output in the United States. It is one failure after another. We can start with, of course, Mr. Fukuyama, and then you look at Brzezinski, and you look at Huntington, and you look at all of them. The guys have no clue what they're talking about because they are all whiteboard theoreticians. Well, okay, Henry Kissinger spent some time in the Ardennes forest, during the Battle of the Bulge, but that doesn't make him a great strategist. And so there you go. What do you expect? The whole system, educational system, the whole system which prepares serious professionals in the strategic analysis and development of the strategies is broken. Ivy League is a joke. Look at their professors. My God, the guys are dumb as stumps, and this same goes for pretty much anybody, So when you have the Madeleine Albright teaching in Georgetown, what could she possibly teach there except for genocidal aspirations? And there you go.
The head of intelligence in Ukraine says that Ukraine will not be able to continue fighting without forced mobilization. How did you find the outcome of this forced mobilization so far in Ukraine? Is that possible for Ukraine, for the situation they're in right now?
No, it's not possible. And again, it will not be possible even with the money. Well, they will try anyway with the money if this package of $60 billion somehow passes their, Senate, U.S. Congress, basically. And how to put it politely, it's already well known. It's in Russia. It's almost a meme that United States wants to fight Russians to the last Ukrainian. And guess what? It probably will, but it will not change outcome. No matter how much weaponry they send there, no matter how much money goes there, they may extend the agony of the Ukrainian state a little bit longer. But in terms of the mobilizational potential and complete demoralization of the population, Ukraine, as we know, it is over. So if they want to catch now 70-year-old men, they're already doing this. They're already doing this. There is a 43,000 women right now at the front lines there. Russians already openly, warning in media, and obviously Russian army is very well aware of that. That actually be careful because they are really sadistics. They are fanatic. Women could be extremely cruel, much more cruel than men, and so they say, yeah, treat them as the combatants. When you attack them, no, don't spare their lives as you would otherwise. Will not with the regular VSU armed forces of Ukraine soldiers. So that's already have been issued, but that tells you what is going on. Look at the videos of the Ukrainian armed forces. These are people who are, my gosh, 50s. That is just absolutely mind-boggling. They are literally killing the male stock of the nation.
It seems that Zelensky decided to dismiss Zelensky. Is the Biden administration doing something in this game between Zelensky and Zelensky?
I think so. There is some obviously play by the United States. It's inevitable. It's an American project through and through. Obviously, Zelensky understands that, you know what, they are pretty close to mutiny there. But it doesn't mean that it will happen. But he understands the danger. He's a very sensitive guy to the danger. So in Zaluzhny, for him, and especially the way Zaluzhny was promoted by some circles of the Democratic Party in the United States, including obviously their subservient media, some like New York Times or what have you. And he wants to get rid of them because he obviously, for him, Zaluzhny represents some kind of the threat to his power position, which is diminishing dramatically. And the problem here, look who he wants to put to install instead of Zaluzhny. He wants to install Budanov. Budanov spelled first. The guy is not normal in the head, so, but he spent most of his life in the military intelligence. Well, that's fine too. The problem is, first, there are no good operational, let alone strategic level officers in Ukraine. None. So, but now, if Zaluzhny, at least, who was a consummate, military, well, I use how to put it politely, there is a word in Russian term called soldafon, which literally means the guy who is absolutely rigid, military, absolutely rugged and, completely non-creative. That's what Zaluzhny is. And actually, you cannot get anything more from your study, for example, in the Western military academies. But putting Budanov, it's merely to guard Zelensky space, so to speak, and power base within the Kiev. And the guy, I mean, I don't think so he's capable of running anything, let alone the army, which is broken and which is, well, it's not on the verge. We already know it's defeated. It's just a matter of how many more sacrifices it's ready to do. So it's all political ploy, so to speak. It's all political game. It makes no sense strategically or operationally because the army is broken.
Bloomberg reported that the US can force Ukraine to remain on the defensive. The question is, are they capable of going on offensive?
You have to understand what Bloomberg is. It is a shyster organization which feeds all kind of rumors and garbage. I quote them once in a while when they have their lucid thought on something, but primarily it's a propaganda outlet. I don't know who is behind them. I know people say that Washington Post is the CIA and New York Times is the FBI and DNC. I don't know what Bloomberg is, but people who work there, and especially their military experts, they're amateurs, okay? No, Ukraine cannot go on any offensive. It can do counterattack, let's say in the platoon or even company of force level, but it's counterattack, it will be annihilated immediately. They do not understand what it takes to go on the offensive and what it takes to create, for example, the fortified rear. Those people have no clue. They don't teach this in any NATO academy. They just don't teach. They don't study it. They study this thing, the Gulf War and general pattern. That's pretty much the level of their study. Well, they study also Pacific campaign, which is absolutely irrelevant in terms of the combined arms warfare for the what is happening in Europe. So in this particular case, everything they write, everything they kind of stuff into the throat of the American public is to say that, hey, they're still fighting. Well, sure, they're still fighting. And when you look at the tactical level, how they fight, as I already stated, it's been already, how to put it polite, almost a routine thing that sometimes they don't even fight back. They go in, close themselves in the dugout, and wait for Russians to come. And some of them, of course, fight. There are still very many drugged and very many fanatical people on there. But primarily, as I already stated, it's a broken force with zero material substance behind it to conduct actually anything in terms of offensive, like large offensive operations. Completely impossible.
The German publisher Bild reported that Germany has begun preparing for war with Russia. We had the same thing coming out of the Ministry of Defense of Germany. Why they're thinking this way, in your opinion? Why is Germany just spreading these kind of rhetorics right now?
Well, because first they're beaten on the head from the Washington, because Germany is not a subject of the international relations; it's an object, and essentially, whatever happens to Germany is defined by the United States. So, United States says jump, Germans ask how high. Now, there is also political agenda hustle, this kind of, ground worms, trying to eat each other in Bundestag. You have now the Germans being so brainwashed that they now support Mr. Pistorius, who is basically the same thing as Scholz. And so they continue to talk and will continue to talk about this absolutely stupid ideas that Russians somehow want to fight Germany. Russians don't need Germany, really. It's over. Those people who still say that, there still could be some reconciliation between Russia and Germany, they have to really get the reality peel. I mean, this is all fantasies anymore. Economically, Germany is falling back and behind Russia. Russian economy is many times larger now than Germany's. And when you look at this, it's just political struggle there, posturing, somebody scoring their internal political points, because in the end, they need to stay in power. And it doesn't matter who comes, socialist, social democrats, or Christian Democratic Union, or what have you. Same old, so makes no difference. They will be trying to create this hysteria. But you know what? I am on record, and you can quote me on this. Germany is done. It is done as the industrial power, and we don't know if it will continue as a nation within next couple of decades, because what is happening there is it's a catastrophe, basically. And it will be the Weimar Republic in coming years.
Ukrainian Armed Forces speaker stated that they stopped importing F-16s and missiles to Ukraine because of fear of Russia, because they're fearing that Russia would bomb these kind of weapons. When it comes to this type of strategic bombing, with what we've seen so far, how do you see this intelligence?
Russian constellation of their military intelligence, and I'm talking about satellites. It is smaller than American one, but again, Americans rely very much on their commercial satellites, which Russia, by the way, now begins to launch at the Project Sphera. So it's the second best recon satellite constellation in the world. So, and not only that, Russians have a very good human intelligence on the ground in Ukraine. So it's possible, but how probable it is, I don't know. And then in the end, it's basically anything in terms of what flies, which is being supplied to Ukraine. It's one sortie unit. They usually take off, launch something, staying as far away as possible from any kind of the front edge of the Russian air defenses. And of course, they are not consulted, they are basically controlled by the American and British intelligence assets, such as, aircraft. But you know what? There are things changed, okay, in the last year very dramatically. So it's increasingly difficult for them to keep this, secret. And yeah, Russians eventually will know where all this is, and they will do what they're supposed to do. They will blow it up.
Recently, Russia summoned the French ambassador for the problem that they were facing with the French mercenaries. What was the problem?
The problem was not the fact that 60 plus of them have been blown up by Russian high precision weapons, and then there were like number of them wounded. It is the fact that if that they would have been so-called volunteers or purely mercenaries, the guys all over France, they just joined some French neo-Nazis and all that, Russia wouldn't have called French ambassador into the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs. The only reason he was called there, which is in itself very important diplomatic move, is because he probably knew he would be presented with their irrefutable evidence and proofs that these were not just mercenaries. Most likely, these were the cadre officers, probably intelligence and from French military. And Russians already begin to publish their names. And there were another French volunteers from Donbass who fight on the Russian side and who serve the humanitarian purposes there. They beginning to leak those names. And I'm pretty sure, judging by the irrational and crazy knee-jerk reaction from Paris, they know what happened. And so now it's essentially telling to Macron that, so we know who you are, you know what you're doing, we know people you're sending to us, here's what we're going to do to them. And that was a message. It was also the message to the British, American, and German, so-called mercenaries, because obviously, Russians have pretty good intelligence. Let's put it this way. So it's good, So there you go. That's why such a absolutely crazy reaction from Paris. Because they wanted to say that they are, we're kind of stay away from that. No, they don't. They supply everything to Ukrainian army, and now you obviously have the French professionals, who are government employers, which tells you employees, which tells you everything you need to know, being annihilated in Russia.
Who's paying these mercenaries? Is the United States? Is Germany? Is European Union?
Oh no, the bunch of the money which goes to Ukraine, at least went to Ukraine from the United States, and actually European Union was the largest, so to speak, supplier of aid, financial aid. Those payments come from this money. If you get paid, of course, because many of them have been simply killed not to pay them after they serve their term. But yeah, that's where the pay comes from. So basically, the Western combined West finances those mercenaries.
One of the important issues that led to this war, this conflict in Ukraine, was this misunderstanding or not knowing what Russia is and how capable Russia is. Because if you remember Barack Obama, when he was in power, he said Russia is a regional power. Oh, this is a huge statement on the part of a president, especially president of the United States. It seems that the information, the intelligence he's receiving is not based on facts and reality. We've been in this conflict for 19, 20 months. Do you think anything is changing on their part? Are they understanding how capable Russia is and was?
No. Well, some do. Generally, the whole system which exists of this, as I already stated, there is no competent strategic analysis in the United States anymore. It was always the issue of the serious strategic analysis and intelligence analysis on this issue. It was always kind of problematic, but at least they had their, appropriate tools, so to speak. They don't have the toolkit anymore to do so. And let me put it this way. For example, Western economic indices and statistics is garbage. Most of it is fraud. It doesn't reflect any kind of the economic actually weakness. The combined West economically is not powerful. It still has some strengths, make no mistake. It still produces a lot, but it have nothing to do with the what is called the market type reflection on the economies. But they apply this flawed and actually misleading tool to Russia. And then, of course, as I already stated, and especially when you look essentially at what is happening in the, let's say, American military education, you can, read the book by Stephen Bakken about the, for example, situation with the U.S. military academy at West Point. It is horrifying. I mean, academically, it's just absolutely mind-boggling. It's complete implosion. So when you have this type of and we're talking about a new generation which went through this and which already reached those colonel, brigadier general, and general ranks. Those people don't know what they're dealing with. So and it comes across the whole spectrum of the political, military, economic activities. And that is why they miscalculated on the historical level. But then again, you have to understand, they don't study real war military history. They don't study World War II history the way it unfolded. Because obviously, if you begin to look at the real mathematically supported, model supported, document supported World War II history, it turns out that the United States wasn't the biggest power. That's one of the things. And yeah, it's very nice that it was arsenal of democracy and producing things, but the fighting was done primarily by Russians in Europe. 80% of the creme de la creme of the Wehrmacht, SS, and European divisions have been annihilated on the Eastern Front. Granted, with some help from the United States, nobody tries to diminish it, but again, it never arrived in required quantities, before 1943. Soviet Union did it practically on its own, and this is the thing. But when you have the history, which is pretty much Hollywood, and it is taught like this, what do you expect? So you live in this confabulated world. You try to basically fit whatever the models or mathematical apparatus you use for operations towards that outcome, which is desirable outcome. Not how it did happen, not how it works, but how you want it to come out. And as the result, the corruption happens, the rot penetrates basically the whole system, and in the end, you have people like David Petraeus or these clowns from the Institute for the Study of War. They won't be allowed to command a battalion in the serious military. These people lost every single war they fought, and now they say, "Oh, yeah, sure, we lost in Afghanistan, so now let's take on Russia. We prepared the best proxy and so." Well, there you go. Here's the result. They don't know anything better. As I already stated, the military strategic thinking in the United States is absolutely rigid. It's not high class. You probably will find a few officers, general officers level, who are competent operationally, but on the strategic level, it's all together. They don't have strategy. They don't know what strategy is. They take one thing, which they convince themselves that they defeated Soviet Union. Soviet Union disintegrated primarily under the brunt of own internal problems, be them in the economically, be them in terms of ethnic composition of the Soviet Union. So, and they think that, yeah, we defeated them. Well, did you hold the parade of the victors on the Red Square after you defeated? No, of course not. And even defeated Russia retained all of its nuclear arsenal, which he accidentally, already by the early 2000s started to modernize dramatically. So when you look at this is like, yeah, sure. Again, confabulation, completely made up history. And they do not learn any serious lessons from that. And as the result, they look at their capitalization of Apple or whatever, Walmart or whatever, Walgreens, and they think that it somehow influences their military conflict and warfare. They are absolutely, I mean, this is insanity. These people don't know what they're dealing with. And as a result, yeah, this is the miscalculation on the unprecedented level. And again, for some reason, they think that when you kind of do it, make allowance for their age and for their time, they think that they're better than Wehrmacht. No, they are not. They're not even in the same league. So, but there you go.
When you look at Europe right now, how long the United States can force Europe to stay in this fight between Russia and the United States? Do you think, are we going to see some sort of sea change in Europe?
Well, it's possible, but you also have to keep in mind that this is a warm up. And Vladimir Lenin, actually, smart guy, by the way, great revolutionary tactician, he wrote a wonderful thing about the properties of the revolutionary situation. It is when the top cannot rule as before, the bottom cannot live like this anymore. You have the acute rise in the basically misery and economic deprivation, and that is all fine, but here is one thing which he wrote absolutely correctly. There is another type of the sign, or basically a required factor for the revolution and change to happen. The economic slogans have to be substituted with the political ones. I don't see any political slogans except for this primarily economically driven. So, and do not forget, say when you look at Germany, for example, it's all economic strikes. Obviously, the misery will increase, but this is only a warm up. Europeans also did it to themselves. It's not just that United States, obviously it played huge role in that. Practically European Union top and all those people, they are most of them the American marionettes and puppets. But Europeans elected those people. And basically what is happening now, the economic destruction of Europe. I'm not sure that France will exist as the France as we know it in the next 20 years. Neither I'm not sure about Germany, which was completely emasculated. It is completely woke. So whatever, so I obviously understand their struggles, economic struggles, but you know what? They allowed it to be done to themselves, So, and probably judging by the fact that the values, which they accepted, cultural values, United States still has some time to kind of, rotate the knife into the wound, and they will take it. But eventually, even that probably gonna run out, but I'm not sure when. But yeah, the governments are somewhat shaky, but shaky doesn't mean that the path is gonna change. They will remove Scholz, they put Pistorius. What difference does it make? The thing will continue and they will vote for it. They will agree on that. Macron, I don't know how many times you can run. If there would be the elections would be held today, guess what? Nobody cares about his rating now. They would go out and vote for him again. This is how it is done. So that's Europe's fate.
Macron recently said we cannot let Russia win because of the security of Europe. Can we define the security of Europe without considering Russia?
Well, you know what? It was true probably, how to put it politely, 10 years ago. Now we see a complete turn, 180 degrees of Russia away from Europe. It is happening. And it's very noticeable, except for obviously Russia will work with any country which is normal, like Hungary, Slovakia, Serbia. So, that goes without saying. And Russia will continue to sell whatever Europe, if it's ready to pay, or for the prices which Russia establishes. But other than that, culturally today, what Europe represents out of itself, culture, there is no common ground whatsoever between Russians and Europeans. So, and that in Russia, as I already stated, and we probably had this exchange before, in Russia, the family is defined as a man and a woman. There is a full protection of children. While for example, in Europe, you have the raging pedophilia, including on the top political class. So Russians are not gonna talk to and deal with these people. It just, So that's it, I guess, And if Europe will come around, I don't know. Maybe not. But in this particular case, it's over. Russia will be arc. It's already serving as an arc for normal Europeans and Westerners. So I write about it all the time. Many Germans move to Russia, Canadians move to Russia. There are Italians in French. So and when you look at this, yeah, you understand why they want to leave Europe. It's not just only for economic reasons. You just basically suffocating there under this 1984 Orwellian reality, and it will get much worse before it gets much better, if it gets much better.
The second part of his talk, Macron said, if Russia wins, the risk of non-compliance with the established rules of the international order will increase. Who established them and who's gonna obey them? Russia doesn't care about it. China doesn't care about it. Global South doesn't care about it. Why they're so obsessed with this type of things right now?
Well, because they are stupid, as I already stated. People talk about how this, people at the, World Economic Forum, where all those, globalists. They're not very bright people. That's what I'm talking about. And I speak about all the time. You probably remember. I don't know if I did it with you or somebody else when Stalin was asked, during World War II about the influence of Pope, and Rome generally on their moods and the views of the large portions of population. Stalin question was, how many divisions does the Pope have? That's pretty much explains to you. Raw power and power, economic, military, all this ruled the world. It's not going to change. So, in order for Macron to basically pontificate on any issues of the established rules order, which is basically the Washington globalist order, the way they want to use whatever the rules they establish, Russia, you are absolutely correct. Russia doesn't care. China doesn't care. So go. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? What? France want to attack Russia? Good luck with that. It will cease to exist in 20 minutes. So that's the whole point. Rules change in the world. And now when you see this catastrophe of NATO in Ukraine, with the complete, humiliation of the operational concepts from NATO, of this equipment, and things of this nature. Yeah, what are you going to do? He is the globalist boy. His basically skills and background are in finances. The guy is basically a bank teller, okay, for Rothschilds. What's his opinion worth? Nothing, useless. He is a political muppet, and he's doing what globalists tell him. But again, World Economic Forum is primarily, it's a very narrow combination of the globalists. But those people, again, as I already stated, they are not very bright. They do not understand modern warfare. They don't understand real modern economy. Their level is, Farid Zakaria, Fukuyama, and other ignoramuses, with degrees in political science. That means what? Have PhD and being dumbed down. So that's pretty much it. That's their level. And I was on record for so many years. Military and warfare is the geopolitical tool of the first order. So, and you cannot have serious military without massive industrial economy in your country, which of course also works towards their consumer goods and things of this nature, especially dual purpose technology. And so now they suddenly discovered that. Well, good luck learning from this. I don't think so they're gonna learn.
If there would be some sort of negotiations between the United States and Russia, do you think is that possible that what remained from Ukraine become part of NATO, or it's not acceptable at all for Russia?
Absolutely not acceptable, and it's not going to happen.
So
If they
what?
will try to do some stupid things, Russia will destroy the rest of the Ukraine. And again, as I stated, the dynamics of the war changes. Their objectives do change a little bit. They get adjusted to the change of the international and geopolitical situation, which was brought about by the same, for example, special military operations. Russians wanted neutral Ukraine in the February 2022, and at January 2024, Russia wants the rump of Ukraine totally under control from Kremlin, and the rest of it, well, we know that Western Ukraine, most of it goes to to Poland, and Hungary will take part, Slovakia and Romania probably will take Bukovina. But as I already posted on my blog yesterday, if you look at this magical angle, triangle essentially, you have Hungary, Slovakia, and those areas, which probably once Russia takes Odessa, guess what? You immediately have a corridor which provides a lifeline for countries which have been pragmatic and normal towards Russia. And this is Slovakia, this is Hungary, and of course there's Serbs. And of course behind Hungary you have Austria. And suddenly you have this conglomerate which will have direct connection geographically with Russia. And that means what? As I already stated, a lot of energy, cheap energy. They will be buying it not the way Europe buys their energy from United States. There is a lot of electricity and massive amount of goods moving through the border. Those countries are going to be very, very wealthy, while the rest of the Europe will be pretty much burning economically.
In the eyes of the Biden administration, they're talking about that NATO is getting stronger, is growing stronger because they have two more members, Sweden and Finland. Militarily, how do you find these two countries? Are they significant for NATO, in your opinion?
No, not that significant. They certainly have some potential, especially Swedes with their definitely advanced program of the, for example, submarines of their primarily Baltic Sea, but they can get around, so to speak. They have some, well, how to put it politely, some capability, but it's not going to change anything, especially with the restoration of the Leningrad military district, whose firepower is just absolutely overwhelming. So, yeah, they will be countered. They are being countered. They think that the more members they have, the better it is, which is not. And the core of the NATO always have been these four countries: Germany, Italy, France, and United Kingdom. The rest of it is just basically, attachments. Let's put it this way in Europe. So, and no, they're not stronger. And again, we are looking at the failure of the fundamental strategic military technological development. They literally have their weapon systems and operational concepts being torn apart in Ukraine, and some of them understand the catastrophe. So in this case, whatever they do, yeah, well, they can continue doing, but Russia has her own way, and obviously Russia will never push away or slap away the hand of cooperation which will be stretched towards Russia, as I already stated, Hungary and Slovakia, and so, but really nobody cares what they think and how they will proceed, because I already stated the strangulation of Europe economically is actually accelerating right now as we speak. And again, you are absolutely correct. There are farmers, demonstrations and strikes all over Europe now. Not only Germany, there are Poland, of course, and Poles have huge issues economically. So, but they are, they're doing pretty much more of the same, and it's not going to end up well for Europe, obviously.
How do you find the way the United States and the UK is fighting Houthis in the Red Sea?
Well, it's difficult to say for starters, because what we can rely upon are obviously only reports in the official or corporate media. And I would say this way: I do not take seriously either of them, be them from, for example, European or NATO side, or from the Houthi side. Both sides obviously exaggerate dramatically, both are into propaganda. So it's difficult to say. But the fact that Houthis actually survive at this stage and really don't care and challenging the United States and UK, that's in itself, in the eyes, for example, of the Arab street, is huge. And it is huge. They can bomb them. Saudi Arabia bombed them for years, didn't get them anywhere. So the same continues with here. It's just the matter of what kind of a technology, or access to what kind of technology they will get eventually, because obviously it's very difficult to attack drones and old, almost ancient subsonic anti-shipping missiles, it's not that easy, especially when you have to do it like one, maximum two missiles at one times, which is this very small salvo. Because in order to break through the air defenses, you have to have a very structured and specially designed salvo, which involves numerous of the missiles. So how that continues will continue to develop, I don't know. But some people throw rumors now that eventually they will get their Onyx, or rather export version of the Russian Onyx missile, which is called Yahan. It is a terrifying supersonic weapon, but I don't know if they will get it. I know that Syria has it, Syria used it, and this is export version. And I did video about it, about the regime of the non-proliferation of the missiles, and they have only 300-kilometer range. Russian version of the Onyx has about 700-kilometer range. So if they get hands on that, even if they have the 300 kilometers range, that will push away the ships of the coalition further towards the Indian Ocean. And so who knows? But hey, they're still there. They still attack, and they show that they're alive. And that, what, their strikes on them by the coalition are not very effective. So there you go. We'll see where it all goes. But they survive, and by virtue of doing this, they are winning.
The other thing that they were talking about this a lot in the United States, this bombing of Iran. Do you think this kind of thinking comes from the Netanyahu administration, that they're pushing this kind of rhetoric, or Biden is preparing to do this because of the election 2024, that his position is not that good right now?
First, if they attack Iran, that's going to be a wowzer. It will be nothing like they ever saw before. Because you already know that there are many US bases there, and we know that American air defense system doesn't work that well. So they will not be able to intercept anything which will be thrown first and foremost, both American bases and then at Israel. Is Netanyahu pushing for this? He and Likud party and the other, nut jobs who are even more radical than him, they certainly want that. They're obsessed with this. Netanyahu and Likud own pretty much most of the US Congress. So, yeah, it's basically they play this game. But of course, Israel wants a chutzpah, that United States goes and attacks Iran. And as I already stated, it's going to end up badly for everybody there, for the United States, for bases of the United States in the Middle East, and for Israel, obviously, because Iran has all necessary, weapon systems, which easily reach Israel. And those, we're talking about pretty sophisticated operational strategic missiles, ballistic missiles, and they have cruise missiles too. So it's not going to end well for either United States or Israel. And then, of course, you have to understand there is a Hezbollah, which is definitely Iranian group, and Hezbollah, even between 2006 when it defeated the IDF, and Hezbollah of today, they are two very different organizations. Hezbollah of today is much more militarily prepared, and it's a large force, well trained and well equipped. And by the way, they do have Onyx missiles, evidently. So, you know what? It's going to be some wowzer. We don't want to go there, but who knows? As per Biden, I don't even know if the country votes for him. The United States is over, so basically it's over. United States will cease to exist as their normal country, which already is kind of struggling. But if he wants to see a complete disaster on his hands before going for the election, I don't know if he will live through that time, sure, see what happens. So they saw that, Ukraine was supposed to become great triumph of the American weapons, American strategy. You know how it all ended up pretty much by now. So if they want to attack Iran, and again, Shoigu and Iran's defense minister, a week ago, they announced about the formation pretty much entering their military alliance. And you know what it means. Russia will supply Iran with anything it needs to defend itself against any kind of American or let alone Israeli aggression. And that means some serious weapon systems, which, and again, listen, the moment they close the Hormuz Strait, which they will immediately, okay, when it happens, the oil will go what? $250, $300 a barrel. It will crush world economy, and with it, American economy, not to speak of Europeans. European economy is it's a butt of the jokes right now. So, and there you go. If they want this outcome, sure, let them try.
In your opinion, if Trump wins, are we gonna have some sort of difference in the US foreign policy in Ukraine and their relations with Russia?
I think Russians are preparing a gift for Mr. Biden for election. It was the same as Iranians did to Jimmy Carter, but they took, hostages. Not good, obviously. But I mean, they robbed it and humiliated Jimmy Carter, and especially on the day of inauguration of Ronald Reagan, they released those hostages. That was literally spit into the face of Jimmy Carter. Russians, of course, have a much greater leverage with Ukraine. So they would probably prepare some gift like Ukraine ceasing to exist for Mr. Biden for the election year. But Trump is the, you know what? If obviously for some miraculous reason he takes Tucker Carlson as his vice president, which he announced that it's not off the table, it's on the table, and he gets Colonel McGregor as his national security advisor, then we might see some things, changing to at least kind of for the better, but only if you get McGregor as national security advisor or Pentagon chief, which he's overqualified. Anybody who is running Pentagon today, they are just a bunch of the amateurs, basically. And so, but yeah, he is. Then who knows? Let's hope. We'll see what ticket will be for Mr. Trump. I don't like Trump, but obviously he is at this stage, at least lesser of two evils, So again, as I said, if country votes for Biden, it's over for the United States as a country. So, but I mean, we'll see. It's a crucial year today. It was something, I don't know, anything in the history, modern history of the United States, nothing was like it is today.
If Russia escalates the war during 2024, would that affect the Biden's popularity in the US?
Well, that's pretty much the continuation of what I just said. Russia doesn't need to escalate the war. Listen, Russian general staff there, people who are there, who work in this central apparatus of Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, majority of those people are consummate professionals who know about warfare way more than Joint Chiefs of Staff knows, okay? And they know how to calculate. They do. And again, you have to understand there is a lot of modeling which is happening right now, or model adjustments, and a lot of military and political forecasting which is being done not just by the General Staff of Ministry of Defense. It is also obviously SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service, by institution by Mr. Narishkin. You have Lavrov's Ministry of the Foreign Affairs. All them are doing also forecasting, strategic forecasting. They know when Ukraine runs out of everything. They're not going to tell us this date, but they know approximately when it's going to happen. That's what I am saying, that the great thing will be once their, for example, their election run starts and, campaigning, Russians can present a very good gift to gift and quote unquote to Mr. Biden, that he will go into his campaigning knowing that Ukraine ceases to exist, which of course gives an enormous boost to Biden, or to Trump, and basically ruins the presidency of Biden, although he ruined it himself, or whoever was behind him. Obviously, he is not the man who makes a final decision. It is primarily most likely Obama and Clinton people who run this whole kabuki theater there. So, well, yeah, I'm on record. Obama is basically always was incompetent person. So, and there you go. We know the result. Yeah. In Western tradition, which is the democratic quote unquote wink wink, for example, passing of any bill is always presented as some kind of the victory. It is the same. Obviously, nobody cares what the consequences of the bill will be. So you see, because it's all about sports, it doesn't matter what consequences will be. It's like the guy goes into the ring, fight the boxer, sustains 2 heavy concussions, but he wins. Then, he dies next day. That's the only way they view the world. That's their definition of victory. So they never think about the far-reaching consequences. So if they pass this, will it change anything? Nothing. They maybe will allow to conduct the rest of some kind of mobilization. They're not going to get 500,000 people. They're probably going to get 100,000 of disabled, old people, women, and youth. So they will be slaughtered at the front line, and the Russians will say, hey, you see, we told you. Everything about this is how to keep the state of Ukraine afloat. It is already dead state. It doesn't exist in functional sense. But they need to send money for Zelensky to pay some bureaucracy, to pay some people in the army, to pay some pensions. But you know what? As I already stated, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. It's just gonna create more suffering for Ukrainians. And as the result, it won't make any difference whatsoever if it passes or not, because in the long run, it is the final result which matters. Not passing of some bill and saying, oh yeah, we won. Sure, go right ahead, So, and see how the Ukraine, basically once it passes, Ukraine will cease to exist as the state as such. Not just romp, but state.